Howdy folks, Jambareeqi here, and welcome to this year's Halloween special episode of Puppet Panic. Because this is going to be a particularly spooky episode, I'm going to be discussing the film adaptation of RL Stine's Goosebumps books.
Zach is a teenage boy who's moved house with his mum and is still grieving the loss of his father. On moving day, he meets his neighbour Hannah and they get along pretty well, but her eccentric father tells the boy to stay away. When Zach suspects that Hannah is being abused by her father, he sneaks into her house with his new friend Champ to investigate, only to find a collection of children's horror stories. It turns out that Hannah's father is none other than RL Stine, author of the Goosebumps series, and they accidentally release a monster from one of his books. After Stine traps the creature back in his book, he explains that his creations are alive, and he keeps them locked up in their pages. However, one character, a dummy called Slappy, is now free in the real world, and plans to release all the other monsters. To restore things back to normal, Stine has to write a new book that tells the story of how the creatures were all sent back. Now, I did grow up with the Goosebumps books. I read quite a few of them as a kid actually, but I did eventually lose interest in them because I started noticing a pattern. A chapter would end with a cliffhanger suggesting something scary was about to happen. I nervously turned the page to the next chapter, and suddenly RL Stine would assure readers that it was all just a misunderstanding. Even as a kid, I got fed up of this writing trick because it just became frustrating, and I wanted real scares as a junior horror fan. Sure, RL Stine has said that these books lean more to being comedies, but I don't even remember laughing at them either. This is why I stopped reading Goosebumps and became obsessed with the Shivers books instead, which genuinely frightened me and made me feel challenged as a young reader.
I know that Goosebumps has a cult audience that found the books to be really scary, but none of them really stuck with me, not like Shivers books did.
So if I was going to enjoy a Goosebumps movie, it would need more than just nostalgic callbacks to impress me, because that kind of fan service means very little to me. Director Rob Letterman has said that he wanted to make a tribute to 80s family films, like Gremlins and The Goonies. Which is cool and everything, but I can't say that he succeeded at recapturing that same magic. The encounters with the monsters are kind of uninspired. It's either the same formula of our hero sneaking around a public place, relying on quick distractions, and being cornered in some way, which can get repetitive. Or a monster will appear right out of nowhere with hardly any build-up, they have a quickly edited and fast-paced fight with our heroes, and then the scene is over before we know it. There's a lack of intimidation from these monsters, because there's little to no attempt to hype up how scary they are, they're just kind of there. It doesn't help that they have very generic designs, each creature resembling the first thing that would pop into anyone's mind. Like the abominable snowman is just a big white gorilla, and the werewolf looks like any other werewolf we've seen in a modern horror film. Sure, their designs are based on the book's illustrations, and it's great that the film stays faithful to them. But what may be eye-catching for a front cover of a book won't simply translate to being cinematically impressive on film. Maybe very sensitive younger kids will find them scary, but anyone older will just see your typical computer-animated Hollywood monsters. The reason why films like The Goonies and Gremlins became cult classics was because they made creative chances with their thrills and chills. They weren't afraid to get pretty intense for family movies, and took the time to let the scares sink in through effective atmospheres. That's why they left an impact and stayed in our memories. I just can't see that same sense of feisty risk-taking in Goosebumps, hence why I don't think it lives up to what it's trying to replicate.
So what about the human characters? Do I think that they compensate for the lack of scares and tension? Well,
Zach's arc of facing his grief is quite realistic, because boys are often pressured to hide in their emotions. So it makes sense that he would keep himself guarded and use sarcasm as a defense mechanism. I think his most likable trait is his instinct to keep fighting. He's the kind of guy who never gives up at any cost and refuses to wait around for things to be solved.
Look, those things out there, they're RL Stine's monsters. And he's here and he can fix this, but we need to buy him time to write. And don't worry, he's a very quick writer.
Champ, on the other hand, yeesh, I couldn't stand this kid to save my life. He's a truly obnoxious, unfunny, and annoying boy with nothing to make up for his abundance of unlikable traits. From insensitively waving off Zach's fears that Hannah is possibly being domestically abused, so he can focus on finding girls for homecoming?
You know, you said there was gonna be girls, and not only are there no girls, but there's a psychopath, and I'm in a suit.
To constantly blurting out what he's thinking and failing to read the mood of the room.
I'm allergic to dust mites.
What's your point?
I'm just saying, I have allergies too, so I understand.
I'm all for finding humour in poor social skills, because that is relatable, but this is just painful to watch, as Champ is more of a cocky jerk than an adorable nerd. Heck, the film is very dependent on finding comedy and awkwardness, but these kinds of jokes fail to land most of the time, so we're just left feeling uncomfortable by the empty space that's there for laughs.
Oh my god! Oh my god, Dad! Dad, what happened to you? Wait. Oh, thank God. Guys, false alarm, it's not my dad.
But one of my biggest grievances with Champ is his woefully handled romance. He has a crush on a popular girl at school called Taylor, who calls him Chump when we meet her. And that's their one scene together, that's it. But when he saves her from a werewolf in the finale, she thanks him with affectionate attention.
I get that this is supposed to be a moment of bravery for Champ, who's been a coward for the whole movie, but there are better ways of doing this. He could have saved someone without it being turned into a love story. I also think it ends up sending the wrong message, that you need to impress your bully in order to get their respect. The film plays their romantic scene together earnestly and sincerely, but I just found it sad, because I saw so many red signals from their relationship already.
Oh, werewolf hair. Oh.
You saved my life, Champ.
It's actually Champ.
Then we have Hannah, someone that could have potentially been an interesting character because she's a free-spirited teenager rebelling against her paranoid father. Plus she shares some believable chemistry with Zach, mutually bonding over their sarcastic sense of humour and feelings of isolation.
Why'd you move to Madison?
Well, my mom said to me, Zach, if you can live anywhere in the world, where would it be? And I said, can we please move to Madison, Delaware? That'd be my dream.
Are you always this sarcastic?
Always? No, that's a strong word. Not always. Usually.
Then we find out the twist that she's really one of Stine's written creations, which opens up fascinating themes of identity and existentialism. But the film doesn't seem interested in exploring her character's feelings about being a supernatural being. It brushes them aside even, making it seem like she has no say about her existence, and focusing way more on the men's perspective.
Hannah doesn't know, does she?
She doesn't know what?
That she's not real.
She thinks she's a person, okay? Not just some figment of your imagination. How could you lie to her?
I was trying to protect her.
Well, yeah, well, good job with that.
This gift of mine is a curse. You have no idea how lonely it's been until Hannah.
The movie mainly uses Hannah's unusual existence to explore Stine's attachment to fantasy, and Zach's need to find someone special after losing his dad. Only the guys get to debate whether Hannah is real or deserves to know how she exists, which is one big yikes to me. We then later learn that the only way to seal away the monsters is by sending all of Stine's creations into his new book. It's at this point that Hannah reveals that she's been aware of her origins all along, and acts quite passively about knowing that she needs to be sacrificed.
You know?
How many sweet 16s can one girl have? Zach, it's time to move on. Now open the book, scaredy cat.
Hannah's sacrifice lacks a lot of emotional weight, because we don't get to see her arc of coming to terms with her identity, or question if she's okay giving up her life to stop all the monsters. It's all very last minute. Hannah lacks so much agency as a character because the movie is clearly disinterested in her self-awareness, and she just becomes a manic pixie dream girl. This mysterious, magical love interest for Zach to over-romanticize, fawn over, and tragically say goodbye to.
You'll be okay. I'll always be in your imagination, which is really where I belong. I'm just sad we never got to share a dance.
Her sacrifice even becomes pointless by the end, when Stine just uses his magic writing to bring Hannah to real life, which doesn't just make her grand gesture seem redundant and melodramatic in hindsight, but also takes away a very valuable opportunity to teach overcoming grief to kids.
Right, enough grumpy Jambareeqi. I have to say that there are some saving graces for this movie, and they luckily happen to be broad aspects of the film.
Firstly, there's Jack Black, who plays RL Stine with this eccentric grouchiness and a dash of good heart. I totally buy that he's this reclusive hermit who obsesses over his work, because Black brings a strange weirdness to the role while retaining a consistent sense of urgency.
What are you doing? That's the werewolf of Fever Swamp. He can smell my scent. No, it's not working. I have to hide.
He's the most engaging character in the film, not just thanks to Black's performance, but also because he's so unpredictable. We never know how he'll react to certain social situations or intense confrontations, because he's not used to being outside with people. Oh, and he's the only character who tells Champ to shut up.
Unbelievable.
Shut it.
Whoa. Domestic?
No, worldwide. It's still very impressive. Shut up.
I believe in you.
Shut up! I'm sorry. I mean, shut up.
He also gets to have a love story with Zach's aunt, but I really disliked this plot line because her character is clearly too obsessed with finding someone.
Oh, hello, cutie. You must be lost. Oh, and no tags. Well, let's get you some water. We'll take you around the neighborhood and we'll find your owner. Is he handsome? Is he single? Is he thinking about leaving his wife and needs a push?
And giving her a boyfriend by the end undoes potential for her growth. It shows that she's not learned to stop being desperate to be with someone, which is a bad start for a relationship. There's also the appeal of Slappy the dummy. Apparently he's the most iconic Goosebumps villain, hence why he's the main antagonist. And while I don't find him scary in the slightest, he's certainly a joy to watch because he's so absurdly theatrical.
Sorry, folks, I slowed down, but I can't reach the brake! Hey, check out my new bestseller! It'll grow on you.
Yes, that's Jack Black again voicing Slappy, giving him this off-kilter delivery that fits his manic personality. The reason Black is playing Slappy's voice is because the film wants to show that Stine and Slappy are one and the same. But I will admit that the movie can be quite on the nose about this metaphor.
I know you. I created you. Or is it the other way around? I always forget. We're so similar.
While most of the monsters were created through computer animation or played by live actors, Slappy was portrayed with an actual real puppet, which was one of the film's best decisions, because it makes him look so authentic and tangible. Sure, CGI was sometimes used to help out, but you can still consistently tell that this is a real puppet on screen.
How do you like it, Papa?
The world is just outside your grasp, but you can't move. You're trapped. That's what it felt like to be locked inside your books.
Avery Lee Jones and Jake McKinnon, the puppeteers behind Slappy, are truly talented. They overcome the stiff nature of an old-fashioned dummy and give him a strong personality with just the slightest movements. Most would just flap the puppet's mouth and make sure he's in frame, but these puppeteers turn, shake or tilt Slappy in subtle ways to vividly get across his sinister emotions. I was honestly really impressed by their work. To conclude, Goosebumps is a rather mediocre movie, heavily let down by its uninspired monster action that fails to excite or scare, weak comedy that's more embarrassing than hilarious, and poor handling of its female characters. However, Jack Black brings an entertaining level of energy to both of these roles, and the puppetry for Slappy is an incredible effort. These two aspects were the only things that made the film watchable and worth sitting through for me.
So those are my thoughts on the Goosebumps movie. What did you think of it? Let me know in the comment section below. I've been Jambareeqi and I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, then feel free to like, subscribe and share. Also, please consider supporting me by making a monthly pledge to my Patreon in return for awesome rewards. Thank you. So, what am I going to be reviewing in the next episode of Puppet Panic? Well, all I can say is that I can feel my spidey senses tingling. Cheerio, folks.